Hello YouTube and welcome back to another Star Wars Armada video. Today we're going to be talking about the new upgrade card collection pack for Armada. I know I'm a little late on this one. I had meant to put this video out sometime before the holidays, but unfortunately my upgrade card collection was lost in the mail, and so I had to request a replacement. People I ordered it from were nice enough to send me one, but unfortunately it didn't get here until just after Christmas, and at that time my brother and his fiance were visiting, so I just was spending time with them. I didn't have time to make the video. So after Christmas, after New Year's, I figured, you know what, better late than never, let's make this video now. So there are a number of really interesting changes with not only just 1.5, but with this upgrade card collection in general. A couple I like, couple I really don't like. I will say there are a lot more changes I like than changes I don't like. The big change I don't like is the change in size. So all these upgrade cards are now roughly the same size as a squadron. In fact, exactly the same size as squadron cards are. And while normally I'm a huge fan of standardization and consistency, this does mean that at my local game shop, where table space is slightly more limited, trying to get all of these different upgrade cards to fit on the table and not have them be in the field of play is going to be a lot more difficult. And I think I'm probably going to have to try and finagle some like small card tables just so that me and my opponent can play our upgrade cards. And I am not a big fan of that. That I think really is the main issue here. Yes, there are also issues. I have a couple card trays where you have the ship cards and rooms for different upgrade cards. And I use those at tournaments, and then I've also got a binder that's got all the little card slots that I can put my upgrade cards in my collection. Those are annoying. The binder issue is really simple to fix. I spend, $20 or so, and I get some new binder sleeves. The trays are a little bit more difficult just because those had to be special ordered from the guy with the 3D printer. But the change in size, I am not a fan of. That really is my main gripe. There are a couple of nerfs that I'm not so keen on, but really my main gripe is the change in size. I'm not a fan of the bigger size of these upgrade cards. One of the changes I do like, however, is the new standardization across all cards with the updated 1.5 symbology. So you can see here on Grand Admiral Thrawn on the left here, there's the number 3, and then there's the star-cross circle symbol. Now the star-cross circle, that just means any command dial. And previously, Grand Admiral Thrawn would read you put 3 command dials on top of this card after deploying fleets. Now, you just have this symbol, and the 3 with the any command dial means you put 3 of any command dial on top of this card. It's a lot cleaner, I think, because normally it's a lot less wordy, and you can use a couple symbols to get the message across a lot more concisely. I think that's good. Now, if we look here at Admiral Piet, we notice that he doesn't have any updated symbology. That's because this is the old card picture, and this is why I wanted to have the physical cards in my hand to manually compare them, because I wanted there to be absolutely no confusion on my end. Of course, now I say that and how pedantic I'm being, I'm sure I've missed a change. But that's just why I wanted to manually compare them all. So, while we're talking about all different commanders in Armada, let's look at all the different changes and start with the commanders, of course. The first big change being Admiral Raddus. Well, I say big change. This change is not really that new. We've already had it. It was FAQ'd a few months ago. Admiral Raddus, before deploying fleets, you may set aside 1 other friendly ship with a command value of 3 or less. At the start of any round, you may deploy that ship at distance 1 to 2 of you. That ship cannot be deployed to overlapping squadrons and cannot be the first ship to activate that round. Yeah, we already knew this change had occurred. It was FAQ'd. Old Raddus, there were no restrictions on how many command points or what command value of that deployed ship could be, and there were no restrictions on which friendly ship that the Raddustin ship or the dropped-in ship could be deployed from. Now it's distance 1 to 2, which is much greater range on it, but it can only be deployed off of your flagship, and since it's only a Rebel commander, you can't have any command value 4 ships that are being dropped in with Raddus, e.g. Starhawks. But okay, that's a pretty fair change. Next, we have Commander Sato. So Commander Sato is, well, it's same Sato. It's just 27 points now instead of 30. Cool. Following Sato, we have Garm Bel Iblis. Now, this is actually a pretty noticeable change. Garm, well, Garm wasn't really used all that often, was he? At least not since, what was that, Wave 3? Wave, somewhere in there. After deploying fleets, place 2 non-consecutive round tokens on this card at the start of the ship phase. During each round matching one of those tokens, each friendly ship may gain a number of command tokens equal to its command value. Again, why I wanted to physically look at these cards instead of just reading online, because what I just said does not match what is said on the Garm Bel Iblis card you see on screen now. First round and fifth round, not 2 non-consecutive rounds. So, is that a good change? Yeah, this is a big change, because first round, sure, okay, I can see that, but fifth round, you've almost certainly lost a couple ships by that point. However, with its change being placed in 2 non-consecutive round tokens on this card, now you can do the second round and the fourth round, first round and the third round, first round and fourth round. Doesn't matter. I part of the reason I didn't like Garm is because it was so inflexible, and because of that, it just wasn't that great of a commander at 25 points. At 25 points, I'd rather run like Dodonna. But with the change, 2 non-consecutive round tokens, it gives Garm a lot more flexibility. It's a lot easier to bring him in fleets now, or at least I think. And yeah, it's just a really solid buff all around. A slightly smaller nerf here is General Reichen. Once per round, when a friendly ship or friendly unique squadron is destroyed, it remains in the play area and is treated as if it was not destroyed until the end of the status phase. You know how Reichen works. I know how Reichen works. We all know how Reichen works. He used to cost 30 points. He now costs 34. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you do, this is the second nerf that Reichen has been hit with. The first one came out about a year and a half ago, I believe, and Reichen used to cost 30 points, of course, but the once per round line here was missing. So if you had 3 friendly unique squadrons get destroyed in a single round, you wouldn't have to decide, okay, which of these 3 is strongest, which of these 3 do I want to stay in play. You can keep all of them there. Reichen was really, really, really strong. And once per round, I think, was a very fair nerf. 34 points, he's gone up by 4 points in cost. That should tell you that even after he was nerfed, he was still really, really strong. But kind of a smaller nerf here, but just wanted to point it out. What isn't such a small change is Leia Organa, the commander, not the officer. When a friendly ship resolves a command by spending a command dial, if it has not resolved another command this round, it may resolve that command as if it's also spent a matching command token. If it does, that ship cannot resolve additional commands this round. Wanted to read that out loud because I'm guessing very few people have ever played Leia Organa, and with good reason. Now, you may be looking at this card and going, well, 28 points for what is effectively a slightly limited Ramus Antilles on all my ships, that's pretty strong, right? And it is. It is very strong. Except, this is the buffed card. The buff was that Leia Organa got a point cost reduction. 10 points, to be exact. Yeah, Leia Organa used to cost 38 points, and no one ever played her. Because she was just 38 points for that effect is way too expensive. It's just way too pricey. Now, she's definitely going to find a home. Now, granted, Rebels have a lot of options when it comes to putting together multiple small unit lists. MSU fleets are something Rebels do very well. They've got Mothma, they've got Medine, they've got Kraken. Kraken now is very good. They've got Reichen, they've got Kraken. So Rebels have no shortage of options when it comes to multiple small unit fleets, which is why Leia was never played, because you could spend 38 points, or you could get an arguably better effect with Medine. And a Medine cost 8 points less. So, Leia Organa was never played, but now she costs 10 points less. I definitely think she will see some play now. 28-point commanders, well, for that effect, 28 points is pretty good. And the final Rebel commander to see a change in 1.5 is Mon Mothma. When a friendly ship resolves the evade token effect, it can cancel 1 die at medium range or reroll 1 additional die at close range or distance 1. Really, the only changes here are the point cost reduction going from 30 to 27. Good. And then the second part of the text there, the reroll 1 additional die at close range or distance 1. Just had to change that to say reroll 1 additional die instead of just reroll 1 die at close range or distance 1. Mothma used to be you rerolled 1 die at close range distance 1 with evade. Now it's 1 additional die since all ships with the changes to evade reroll 1 die at close range or distance 1. Overall, pretty solid change. Moving along to Imperial commanders who have had changes, we first have Admiral Constantine. So, Admiral Constantine, at the start of each status phase, you may choose any number of enemy ships at distance 1 to 5 of at least 2 friendly non-flotilla ships, one of which must be of medium or larger size class. For each chosen ship, you may discard 1 navigate token from it, or increase or decrease its speed by 1 to a minimum of speed 1. So, kind of a minor change here. It used to be distance 1 to 5 of at least 2 friendly, medium, or large ships. So now it's 2 friendly ships that can't be flotillas, and one of them has to be medium. The other one can be a small ship like a Raider, or Architens, or Gladiator. Kind of a minor change, but it does mean that Constantine now might see a little bit more play, which is good, because he didn't see too much before. Change here to Admiral Ozzel is pretty nice. During each friendly ship's determined course step, it may change its speed by 1. So effectively, it's just a passive buff that always goes out across all your ships. Ozzel used to do something similar to this, except it was more like Maydeen. Used to still cost 20 points, no change in the point cost, but it used to read that after you execute a navigate command via either dial or token, the friendly ship that executed that command can change its speed by an additional 1. So now it's just, well, change its speed by 1 for free. You don't need to waste any time with navigate commands in order to get the additional change in speed. Pretty solid change, pretty good change, I like it. Change here to General Tag is quite similar to that of Garm Bel Iblis. After deploying fleets, place 2 non-consecutive round tokens on this card. At the start of the ship phase, during each round matching one of those tokens, each friendly ship may recover 1 of its discarded defense tokens. So yeah, just like Garm, except instead of gaining command tokens equal to your command value, you're recovering 1 of your discarded defense tokens. This is pretty solid. Now, of course, Tag used to read something different. The card used to tell you which rounds you could recover those defense tokens, and those rounds were the 3rd round and the 5th round. Was this good? It was okay. It saw potential with, say, Super Star Destroyers, when you weren't running Jar Jar. But now that you can place 2 non-consecutive round tokens, when you can choose those rounds, it means General Tag gives you more options, which just makes him a better commander. And the final Imperial commander to see a change is Grand Moff Tarkin. And just like how General Tag was changed in the same way Garm Bel Iblis was, Grand Moff Tarkin was changed in the same way Leia Organa was. Namely, text remains the same, point cost goes down. At the start of each ship phase, you may choose 1 command. Each friendly ship gains a command token matching that command. So, slightly different flavor on Thrawn, you might say. But 28 points, that seems pretty fair, especially when Thrawn costs 32. Big difference here is that Grand Moff Tarkin used to cost more points, 38 points. So exactly mirroring Leia in that regard, 38 points to 28 points. And was never flown to 38 points, really, outside of like Learn to Fly games, because it's way too expensive. But now 28, I definitely think he'll see play. And that about wraps up all of the commander changes. Again, I was just covering the commander changes where the actual in-game effect was changed. Thrawn got like the new symbology, and some commanders are getting that updated symbology, but their in-game effect remains the same. Speaking of updated symbology, we can see that here on Captain Brunson. You see the little circular arrow type thing next to her name here. That is simply just showing that this is an exhaust card that will automatically unexhaust itself. You don't have to pay a price to unexhaust this card. those of you who don't know, that's a thing now, and there are several cards on this list that have that new effect. But Captain Brunson, her effect remains the same. While defending at distance 1 to 2 of an obstacle, during the spend defense token step, you may exhaust this card to choose and cancel 1 attack die. This is a pretty strong card. Generally, you'd see it on like the Unkillable Interdictor build, where you could run Captain Brunson with the Interdictor title, and then just cancel whatever dice you want. But, as we quickly found out, it is very easy to get within distance 1 to 2 of an obstacle, and, comfortably stay at that distance of an obstacle to keep that cancel dice effect up. So, Captain Brunson costs 9 points now, which is 4 points more expensive than she used to cost. She used to cost 5, she now costs 9. This is a fair change. Captain Brunson was run a lot. She's very, very strong, and she will still be run in a lot of lists, because that is a very strong effect, being able to cancel a die. And that's just not just on ship attacks. If a squadron is bombing you and say, you get hit by a Y-wing that has a black hit crit, you can cancel that dice with Brunson. That's really good. Or if, an MC-30 or a Gladiator comes up and they only have 1 black hit crit in the attack, well, Brunson prevents you from taking that extra special critical hit damage from like APTs or ACMs or whatever they have. So this is a pretty fair change. Fairly simple, just increasing the point cost for Captain Brunson, but I think she definitely needed a bit of a cost increase. So I switched over to Hivelabs here really quick, just so that I could show you the updated cards for Gunnery Team, because Ryan Kingston doesn't have quite all of the updated changes. So, Gunnery Team, the next attack you perform this activation can be performed from this hull zone. Each of your hull zones cannot target the same ship or squadron more than once during your activation. So, fairly minor change here. Really, it's just 1, you have to execute a concentrate fire command via dial or a token, and 2, you can only ever perform 2 attacks from the same hull zone, meaning it's a bit of a nerf on something like, say, a Super Star Destroyer that could attack 3 times out of the same hull zone. Now it can only attack twice. Okay, this is a fair change. Really, I don't know if the only twice out of the same hull zone, the next attack you perform, meaning if there's a 3rd attack, you can't do it out of the same hull zone. I don't know if that was strictly necessary. I kind of feel that Super Star Destroyers are sort of on their way out, but okay. But the concentrate fire command, I think that's pretty solid. So this is a nerf, but it's a fair nerf in my opinion. Small change here to Ordnance Experts. While attacking, you may reroll up to 2 black dice. So really, it's a change from you just may reroll all of the black dice you want, any and all, to now you can only do 2. This is a pretty fair change, just because it means that black dice are slightly less consistent. They were pretty strong. Now you can only do 2, which means that if you throw 4 black dice out of one arc, like with an MC-30 or Gladiator, and 3 of them whiff, it's less strong. It's still definitely strong. I definitely think it's just going to be run standard on MC-30s, Gladiators, and pretty much any black dice boat. But it is now slightly weaker than being able to reroll all of the black dice. Next change we have is to engine text. We see the new automatic refresh symbol there for when you exhaust engine text. After you execute a maneuver, you may exhaust this card to execute a speed 1 maneuver. And you can see that you can only use engine text after you execute a navigate command via token or dial. However, this bottom part here is new. After you execute a maneuver, if you overlap the ship, exhaust this card. That bottom text wasn't on the old engine text you can see here. What does this mean? Well, you can't engine text ram. So what people would do, and I've done this myself, is you would take a ship with engine text like an MC-80 Liberty or a Gladiator, and you put engine text on them, you'd steer them up to an enemy ship, and your normal maneuver, you would ram an enemy ship with your normal maneuver. Then you would use engine text to ram them a second time. And basically it was just a really cheap way of getting 2 extra damage cards, maybe finish off an enemy ship. This means you can't do that anymore. This is a good change because I don't think engine text ram brought a lot of good things to the game. So, good change here. Next, we have electronic countermeasures with a rather sizable nerf here. As you can see on the right-hand side of the card, it has the exhaust symbol, but it's the exhaust, but it does not automatically ready itself, as the arrow is only going the one way. And below that, you can see in that reddish-orange bar there, number 1, and then an engineering symbol. So, after you spend electronic countermeasures, you exhaust the card. Then you have to spend either a discard, an engineering dial, or an engineering token in order to ready electronic countermeasures. Is this a good change? Yeah, I would say so. Pretty much every ship that could run ECMs, with the exceptions of the Architens and the MC-30, I believe the only two real small ships that could run electronic countermeasures that really didn't. And that's just because, well, it keeps your ships alive for a lot longer. It was just seen as standard on a lot of big ships. Now, does this nerf destroy the card? No, absolutely not. I still think electronic countermeasures will be run a lot. It just may not be run quite as often. You may see people running things like early warning systems a lot more often than ECMs, which, hey, that's a good thing. Get more variety, more cards being played. It is a tough nerf on the card because I particularly like running electronic countermeasures, but I think it's necessary, and for the game as a whole, this will be a net positive. Another good change for the game is Bomber Command Center. Everything about this card remains the same except for this bottom line here. A squadron cannot resolve more than one Bomber Command Center card per attack. And this is just a bit of a rata, basically saying that you can't have, like, 2 flotillas, and both flotillas are in Bomber Command Center range of a bomber squadron, and then you can re-roll that bombing attack with 2 Bomber Command Centers. Really, it's just a good quality of life improvement. Nothing too ridiculous here. This is just a good clarification. And as I recall, this is also just clarifying some FAQ that was made some months ago, basically just saying this: you can't stack Bomber Command Centers. And hey, Slicer Tools has gotten nerfed. Yay. This card begins the game exhausted. After you execute a maneuver, you may exhaust this card to choose an enemy ship at distance 1, 2, 3. You may choose a new command on its top command dial. Wow, okay. A couple things to unpack here. First off, it starts the game exhausted. Yeah. That just basically means turn 1 you have to make sure you put an engineering command on your Gazanti to ready Slicer Tools. And it does not automatically ready itself. You have to spend an engineering command or engineering token in order to ready Slicer Tools. So, how big is this nerf? Well, kinda sizable, kinda not. So, one of the ships that all too often you would see being run, and I ran it a lot myself, I'm guilty of running it, is the Tua Tub. The Tua Tub, you take a Gazanti, you take Minister Tua, you take Slicer Tools, Suppressor, and then with Tua you could put electronic countermeasures on there so you could always scatter. Between the ECM's nerf and the Slicer Tools nerf, electronic countermeasures, the Tua Tub is kinda heavily nerfed. You will see this a lot less often, and it will certainly be a lot less annoying, because you'd basically just steer your Tua Tub into the center of the enemy fleet, and it'd be like, okay, well, you can spend two full attacks to destroy this thing, or you can kind of ignore it, and it's just going to completely screw up your defense tokens into your command dials. So, Slicer Tools, yeah, this is just a good change all around, and definitely needed, because the Slicer Tuas, or the Tua Tub, whatever you want to call it, it was really annoying to play against, and nerfing it is definitely the right move in my opinion. This next change is it's a 2-for-1: assault concussion missiles and assault proton torpedoes. Basically just the same change to both of them. They're exactly the same effect, except APTs went down in points from 5 to 4, and ACMs went from 7 to 5. but they both became exhaust cards. They automatically ready themselves, so you don't need to spend a concentrate fire token or dial in order to ready them, but they are exhaust. What this means is that if you have like an MC-75 or an MC-30 or a Gladiator, and you're double arcing someone, you can't get APTs and ACMs off of those two different attacks. I mean, I suppose you could run APTs and ACMs in an MC-75 and get one APT and one ACM, but that doesn't seem quite optimal to me. These are very good changes, though, because getting double arced by a Gladiator with Demolisher and taking 2 face-up damage cards from it was pretty disheartening. It wasn't super fun, and this is just a solid change all around. It's a very simple one. It is a definite nerf to both cards, even with the fact that, you know, they've gone down in their point cost. This is still a definite nerf. This is a nerf that I think is definitely necessary. Small change here. External racks goes from 3 points to 4 points. It's still going to be used. I think what the game designers are going for is to kind of push players towards using things like expanded launchers or rapid reload, wide area barrage, some of these other black dice modifiers other than just always assault concussion missiles, assault proton torpedoes, and external racks all the time. 1 point cost for external racks, I don't think that's going to do it. I think it's still going to be run a lot. I don't see people switching to like rapid reload or expanded launchers with a 1 point increase in external racks cost. But hey, sure. Really small nerf to leading shots here, going from 4 points to 6 points. Yeah, that's fair. A lot of ships love using leading shots. It's very widely used. Increases point cost a little bit just to try and subtly push people towards other ion cannon options. In terms of ion retrofits, I definitely think leading shots will still be used more than pretty much everything else here. You know, maybe some people try things like heavy ion emplacements or overload pulse or SW7s. Okay, but yeah, it's a minor nerf, but it's a thing. Sure, I agree with it. H9 turbo lasers is now a modification. It's limits as to what you can run with H9s. Yeah, this is fair. There are some really annoying combos that could be pulled off with H9 turbo lasers and making it a modification. Well, it's a nerf. It's a sizable nerf. Some ships will really not like it, but this is another one I wholeheartedly agree with. Next, we have a nerf to XI7 turbo lasers, and I view this less of a nerf of XI7s and more as a buff of things like advanced projectors and foresight. So, XI7 turbo lasers, while attacking, if the defender spends a redirect token, it cannot suffer more than 1 damage on each hull zone other than the defending hull zone when it resolves the redirect defense effect. So, unless your ship has advanced projectors or the foresight title or something like that, no change here. But let's say our ship does have advanced projectors. If we're dealt 4 damage into 1 arc, we can spend the redirect token with advanced projectors and send all that damage equally distributed among all 4 hull zones on the ship. Is this a huge deal? Yeah. On ships like, say, an MC-30, who have a good amount of shields, being able to redirect that and have XI7s not be as huge of a problem, yeah, that's really strong. It's a minor nerf. It's not, game-breaking in any way. It's not a huge metagame changer, but it is a nerf. It's one I agree with, and it definitely makes cards like advanced projectors, which weren't run very often, a little bit stronger. So, yeah. Good. And then the last upgrade card before we move into titles that changed is quad turbo laser cannons. No change here other than it's now a modification. Yeah. This I have a genuine question on. Please let me know down in the comments section if quad turbo laser cannons needed to be a modification. Please do, because I am genuinely curious here if quad turbo laser cannons was a major problem and needed to be hit with the relatively soft nerf of being a modification. Is there a combo that I am not aware of with quad turbo laser cannons that necessitated it becoming a modification? I'm not aware of one at all. I don't see why this change needed to be made, but it's been made now. But yeah, let me know in the comments why this needed to happen, because I've seen it played once, ever. But yeah, let me know. Curious. Moving on now, we are talking about title cards and different changes to the title cards. And first we have Yavaris. And it's been hit by the little nerf, hasn't it? No. Yavaris is not dead. It is not dead at all. Each squadron you activate may choose to only attack during your activation. If it does, while attacking, it may add 1 die to its attack pool of a color already in its attack pool. Okay, so it is definitely weaker. For sure. But 5 points, okay, as a title card, it's a slightly different flavor of flight controllers, which if you want to put flight controllers on a Nebulon, you'd have to take the Vanguard title and then the flight controllers upgrade card. So no, this is still a good title card. If you're running Rebel squadrons, especially Rebel bomber squadrons, because Yavaris does allow you to add extra dice to bombing attacks against ships, it's still a very solid title card. Now, for those who are saying, oh, but it's so much weaker now. It's so much weaker. Yes, it is so much weaker now than it was before. Before, Yavaris was in all but 2 World Championship lists. To my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but there have been 5 World Championship tournaments for Star Wars Armada. Of those 5, Yavaris featured prominently in 3 of them. So, yeah. Those 2, and the 2 World Championship lists that did not have Yavaris, to my recollection, one of those World Championships happened before the Yavaris title card came out, before the Nebulon B expansion pack was released, and the other one was a Sloan list. So yeah, to those who are saying, oh, it's so much weaker now, it absolutely is so much weaker. It kind of needed to be, because it was one of the strongest, if not the strongest title card in Armada. So yes, definite nerf to Yavaris. Big nerf to Yavaris, but I'm not going to get upset because Yavaris needed a sizable nerf. Yavaris was this is the second nerf, a bit like Reichen, this is the second nerf Yavaris has taken. The first nerf Yavaris took was that squadrons could not move at all during your turn for them to attack twice, because what people would do is they would run things like fighter coordination teams or Adar Talon to move the squadrons up and then activate them with Yavaris. They got rid of that, and now, from the wording, it looks like you can do that now, but it is still a definite nerf on Yavaris. Again, it needed it. Even still, Yavaris is still a solid title card, and now I think it's definitely weaker. When it comes to activating squadrons for Rebels, I think it might be on the slightly weaker side. But again, I'm just spitballing here. Could still be really good. Definitely weaker, but it's still a solid title card. Yavaris is not dead. Another title card to get hit with a nerf hammer is Admonition. Yeah, while defending during the spend defense token step, you may discard a ready defense token to cancel 1 attack die. So the reactions to this nerf are going to be polar opposites. If you're a mainly Rebel player who usually plays Rebels, I'm not an exclusive Rebel player, I play a lot of Imperialists, but I prefer Rebel lists, and I'm not happy with this change because I love running Admonition. Imperial players, people who normally play Imperialists, see this and are jumping for joy and cannot contain their happiness. And yeah, I completely agree with this change. I don't like it because, again, I love running Admonition, but I totally agree. Admonition is way too strong, and this nerf is completely warranted. What this also means is that Foresight, which has already been getting pretty strong with the changes to Evade and the changes to XI7s, well, now there's even more incentive to run Foresight on your MC30, because now Foresight's, well, it's even better. You're in Foresight with Mothma, you're re-rolling 3 dice at close range or distance 1. Yeah, that's not insignificant. But yeah, overall, I agree with this change, even though if I don't like it because I'm a Rebel player and I like Admonition. And the last Rebel title card to have a change is Mon Carin. Yes, one of my second favorite title card in the game, right behind Salvation, although Raquel comes in a very close third. While attacking a ship, the defender cannot spend more than one defense token during this attack. And, okay, no change there. But it now only triggers if you have a concentrate fire command, either dial or token. Yep, that's a nerf. It does, however, come down in point cost from 8 to 6. So, let me know what you think down in the comments. I feel that these two changes balance each other out, but I can definitely see an argument where a concentrate fire requirement is a lot bigger than, losing 2 points off of the cost. Let me know what you think of this one down in the comments. I think this is a fair change because, well, now you actually have to put some concentrate fire commands in the command dial stack for Mon Carin, or you have to make sure that you got a GR75 nearby to throw concentrate fire tokens over to it instead of just doing what you would want to do with a Liberty overall, which is stack navigate command dials. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I think this is a fair and rather interesting change. There are only 2 Imperial title cards to receive changes, but both are significant. The first is Demolisher. During your attack step, you can perform only one attack. You can perform one of your attacks after you execute your first maneuver during your activation. So what does this mean? Well, now it means you have to split up your attacks before and after movement with Demolisher. Previously, if you wanted to, you could still perform both attacks before your movement phase. No longer. You have to, if you want to attack twice, one of those attacks has to be after you execute your first maneuver. You still can't perform the attack after you engine text maneuver, and it still costs 10 points, but now it's tempering Demolisher. It makes it slightly less versatile. And the reason for this is because you would take Demolisher, you'd fly it up to an enemy ship, attack, and then ideally you'd get to last first to them, and then you'd perform both attacks, and then you'd maneuver. So now it's basically forcing you to say, all right, if you want to perform 2 attacks, you have to do the before and after maneuver thing. And this is a good change. I think this is about on par with the Admonition change, and both are very fair in my opinion. And the last upgrade card to see a change is Avenger. While attacking, you may exhaust this card. If you do, the defender cannot spend more than 1 exhausted defense token during this attack. Yeah, Avenger's dead. I'm sorry. I don't like saying, like, oh, this card's dead and it'll never be played again. It's a bad card now, because I want all cards to have a place. And I think all cards do have a place in Armada. Unfortunately, I think Avenger's place right now is sitting in your collection right next to Sensor Teams. Yeah. While attacking, you may exhaust this card. If you do, the defender cannot spend more than 1 exhausted defense token. If that sounds familiar, that's because that's the Mon Carin ability. Except with Avenger now, you have to set up for it. So you either need to use boarding troopers or, like, say, something with Overload Pulse. And boarding troopers with the Avenger title, or BTA as it was known, was super, super strong. But that's because Avenger used to read, the defender cannot spend any exhausted defense tokens instead of just 1. Now, if you're using Avenger against, say, an MC-80, they can use electronic countermeasures to brace. And then you just set up for basically your opponent to say, okay, all right, well, it's a bit like, you set me up for a Mon Carin ability. And you had to spend 3 points on boarding troopers. You had to make sure you got the squadron token over there, or you had to make sure you got the correct shot off with an some sort of ship with an ion cannon retrofit and overload pulse. So it's just not worth it anymore. It used to be, because Avenger, if you'd run it on something like a Kuat or an ISD-1, you could realistically one-shot an MC-80, and theoretically you could one-shot a fellow Star Destroyer. You can't do that now. It has been nerfed into basically unusability, in my opinion. And with every nerf up until this point, I'm like, okay, this seems kind of fair. This is not fair. Again, I want all upgrade cards, all ships, all, commanders to be usable in Armada. And right now, I don't see this as usable. Why not? Well, because something like Relentless or Sovereign exists, or, hey, run a Star Destroyer with like a couple Gladiators and, have 7th Fleet. Relentless is 2 points cheaper. The total number of command dials that must be assigned to your ship during the command phase is reduced by 1. Seemingly minor change, but really, really strong. It makes your Star Destroyer a lot more versatile and a lot more able to respond to problems and big changes in the battlefield. So, yeah, the Avenger is dead. There's no other way to put it, and I think it's a bad thing. I feel like there should have been a different, or maybe preserve the Avenger effect, but increase its point cost by a lot. Just because it's a super strong effect, but it was a unique effect. Now it's basically just a knockoff Moncaren. So those are all the changes in the new upgrade card collection and the 1.5 Armada update, as it's being called. Overall, I think these are all very good changes. Really, the only two I don't like are, one, again, that I think the upgrade cards are all too big now, and two, I'm not a fan of how Avenger is basically unusable at this point. But overall, I think these are all very good changes for the game. Again, let me know in the comments what you think of the Moncaren changes and the quad turbo laser cannon changes. Moncaren, I just simply can't decide whether or not it's a net positive or a net neutral, net negative change. My bias towards Liberties has been made apparent, so let me know what you think. As for quad turbo laser cannons, please let me know why those needed to be a modification now. Am I missing some sort of big combo? Please let me know, because if I am, then, I'd love to learn about it. But that about wraps this video up. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.